I want to watch the news.
Are you making headway at least?
This is the news.
Schmack-a-ma-gob, it's time for the only news that matters on Black Sabbath Sunday. And Phil Soussan, a bass veteran known for a long list of work in rock and metal music, looked back on abandoning Jimmy Page's newly formed band in favor of joining Ozzy Osbourne. The late 1970s and early 1980s marked significant change in rock music after John Bonham's passing. Led Zeppelin dissolved and Jimmy Page was planning to do something new. At the same time, Ozzy Osbourne kicked off his solo career, ultimately paving the way for becoming one of the biggest, if not the biggest name in heavy metal during the 80s. Obviously, this meant the great musicians were in high demand for a new opening. As Phil Soussan recalls in a recent chat with the Bass Player magazine, Jimmy Page hit me up after the dissolving of his band Wildfire, which was managed by Peter Grant, the man who helped Led Zeppelin become one of the biggest rock bands of all time. He said, I got a call to ask if I'd be interested in playing with Jimmy Page. So, of course, I jumped on that. Jimmy Page was getting back into playing. He'd not been doing very much outside of the studio work for some time. So this was the initial version of the band that later became known as The Firm. At the time, they were just rehearsing and doing some writing, but nothing really showed signs of things would soon move on to be more serious. Phil continued, initially, it was Jimmy, drummer Chris Slade, and myself. We were playing for weeks and months and rehearsing in a famous room in London called Nomis. We were just having fun playing these songs we liked and messing around with new ideas. However, when the new great offer came in, which promised immediate work, you can't really say no to it. When asked why, he eventually decided to join Ozzy Osbourne's band, eventually leading to one record with the legendary singer Phil Soussan said, during the time Ozzy saw me on TV doing a gig, I knew people in his camp and I got a call from the security who said, I've got this guy who wants to talk to you. She put Ozzy on the phone and he said, why don't you come down and meet me? So I got an audition amongst a lot of people, but I went and played and I got the gig. The dilemma I had was, what do I do now? I love Jimmy and I really wanted to work with him. But he said, look, we're not really going to do, for at least another year and a half, we're not going to make an album. And we knew Paul Rodgers was going to be involved, but he hadn't started. So Jimmy said, if you want to go work straight away, do the Ozzy game. Do the Ozzy gig. If not, we'd love to have you. Phil Soussan joined Osbourne's band in 1985 and stayed until 1987. Although he didn't stay for long, Phil recorded bass parts on the 1986 album, The Ultimate Sin, which also marked the last record of the Jakey Lee era. Looking back on the matter, Phil said, I opted to do Ozzy, and I left, of course. Jimmy and the Firm eventually came together, and I stayed good friends with him. He's a wonderful, wonderful man and a beautiful human being. I absolutely adore him. Well, there you go. I didn't know that about him. And in case you missed it, we interviewed Phil Soussan on this channel on Almost Human Live about a month ago. And it was an awesome interview, man, where he actually said that Sharon Osbourne kicked him in the knee in front of Phil Soussan's open casket. And that didn't get on Blabbermouth. You know, I was telling my friend that today. I was like, how crazy it is, because I know somebody sent that story to Blabbermouth to, you know, hey, look, Phil Soussan got kicked in the knee, blah, blah, blah. Sharon Osbourne. And they never, and I told my friend, it's weird. I mean, that's a Blabbermouth story. Sent them, they never put it up. And my friend said, you know why? I bet you Sharon Osbourne got them scared. And I thought about it, and correct me if I'm wrong, I never see anything negative about Sharon Osbourne on Blabbermouth. And boy, is there a lot to be negative about, you know? But hey, I may be wrong. Maybe they did bring up the fact that it was screwed up how she took Bob Daisley and Kerslake off the first two albums. Who knows? But, you know, The Firm, I wasn't really a big fan, though I do own both albums. I think the second album actually was a little better, and it was not as popular, Mean Business. It has a song on there called Rest in Peace, and I think it's fucking awesome. And Tony Franklin played the bass. That's two okay albums, nothing to write home about. And I wasn't a big fan of Death Wish 3. And then that Outrider album, what the hell was that about? It's like a bunch of lame instrumentals with a couple songs of singing. That's really, really an oddball album. Why would he release that? He should have released an album, a proper album with singing all the way through, man. All right, maybe one instrumental, but the whole fucking, I believe it only had 2 songs with vocals. Freaking weird. And I bought that record, you know, because I'm a Jimmy Page fanatic. But yeah, man, it wasn't until he hooked up with Coverdale, because everything was lame up to that point. Then Coverdale Page, what an album. What an amazing album. And I did like Walking Back to Clarksdale with Robert Plant. It's an oddball album, but I dig it. So, yeah, I think the last 2 things that Jimmy was involved in, Plant and Page and Coverdale Page, it's Jimmy back. And I saw the Coverdale Page Walking Back to Clarksdale tour at the Miami Arena, and it fucking blew my mind. They opened with Wanton Song, and I mean, the whole set was just badass with a really great drummer. Whoever that was, that dude was awesome. That show was awesome. But that's how you're going to get Jimmy Page, you know, playing arenas. You got to bring somebody from Led Zeppelin. Well, only one guy from Led Zeppelin. I don't know if Jimmy Page did a tour with John Paul Jones, it would be as popular. Hey, who knows? I love John Paul Jones, I'm just saying. But, yeah, Ozzy was the right choice for Phil to do, because Ozzy was huge. Where Page, you know, was huge in the 70s. Wasn't really setting anything on fire with, you know, with his Death Wish 3 shit. You know, so The Firm was very important and didn't really take him to the stratosphere. It wasn't one of those, oh man, you know, like Ronnie James Dio was in Rainbow, then Sabbath, then the Dio Band, you know. He's part of legendary bands. And unfortunately, Page never achieved that. But Ozzy was on such a roll, you know, at the time. With Ultimate Sin, and I mean, well, before that, Bark of the Moon, Diary of a Madman, and the first album, it exploded. And like that article said, I think about it, he probably was the biggest name of heavy metal back then. As far as today, the biggest heavy metal solo artist is Ozzy Osbourne, hands down. Nobody is bigger than Ozzy as a solo artist, you know, in metal and pretty much everything else. Except Lionel Richie. Fucking Lionel Richie. Boy, am I living in the past. But, yeah, Ozzy rules. And that's all to it. So thank you so much for watching The Only News That Matters. And leave me a comment below what you feel, you know. Should have he gone with Jimmy Page instead? Or go with, you know, Ozzy? I think he did the right choice. What do you think? Leave it in the comments below. And please subscribe to my channel if you haven't. I really would appreciate that. And and like the video. It's good for the YouTube algorithms. So stay frosty. Listen to Black Sabbath and smack 'em a gobble.
Farewell and adieu to you fair Spanish ladies. Farewell and adieu, you ladies of Spain. For we've received orders for to sail back to Boston. And so never more shall we see you again.